A reading from the book of Judges, chapter 7. One day Gideon and all his men got up early and camped beside Harod's spring. The Midianite camp was in the valley to the north of them by Moreh hill. The Lord said to Gideon, "The men you have are too many for me to give them victory over the Midianites. They might think that they had won by themselves, and so give me no credit. Announce to the people, anyone who is afraid should go back home, and we will stay here at Mount Gilead." So 22,000 went back, but 10,000 stayed. Then the Lord said to Gideon, "You still have too many men. Take them down to the water, and I will separate them for you there. If I tell you a man should go with you, he will go. If I tell you a man should not go with you, he will not go." Gideon took the men down to the water, and the Lord told him, "Separate everyone who laps up the water with his tongue like a dog from everyone who gets down on his knees to drink." There were 300 men who scooped up water in their hands and lapped it. All the others got down on their knees to drink. The Lord said to Gideon, "I will rescue you and give you victory over the Midianites with the 300 men who lapped the water. Tell everyone else to go home." So Gideon sent all the Israelites home except the 300 who kept all the supplies and trumpets. The Midianite camp was below them in the valley. That night the Lord commanded Gideon, "Get up and attack the camp. I am giving you victory over it. But if you are afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant Purah. You will hear what they are saying, and then you will have the courage to attack." So Gideon and his servant Purah went down to the edge of the enemy camp. The Midianites, the Amalekites, and the desert tribesmen were spread out in the valley like a swarm of locusts, and they had as many camels as there are grains of sand on the seashore. When Gideon arrived, he heard a man telling a friend about a dream. He was saying, "I dreamed that a loaf of barley bread rolled into our camp and hit a tent. The tent collapsed and lay flat on the ground." His friend replied, "It's the sword of the Israelite, Gideon, son of Joash. It can't mean anything else. God has given him victory over Midian and our whole army." When Gideon heard about the man's dream and what it meant, he fell to his knees and worshipped the Lord. Then he went back to the Israelite camp and said, "Get up! The Lord is giving you victory over the Midianite army." He divided his 300 men into 3 groups and gave each man a trumpet and a jar with a torch inside it. He told them, "When I get to the edge of the camp, watch me and do what I do. When my group and I blow our trumpets, then you blow yours all around the camp and shout, 'For the Lord and for Gideon.'" Gideon and his 100 men came to the edge of the camp a while before midnight, just after the guard had been changed. Then they blew the trumpets and broke the jars they were holding, and the other 2 groups did the same. They all held the torches in their left hands, the trumpets in their right, and shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." Every man stood in his place around the camp, and the whole enemy army ran away yelling. While Gideon's men were blowing their trumpets, the Lord made the enemy troops attack each other with their swords. They ran toward Zarethan as far as Beth Shittah, as far as the town of Abel Meholah near Tabath. Then men from the tribes of Naphtali, Asher, and both parts of Manasseh were called out, and they pursued the Midianites. Gideon sent messengers through all the hill country of Ephraim to say, "Come down and fight the Midianites. Hold the Jordan River and the streams as far as Beth-barah to keep the Midianites from crossing them." The men of Ephraim were called together, and they held the Jordan River and the streams as far as Beth-barah. They captured the two Midianite chiefs, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at Oreb Rock and Zeb at the winepress of Zeb. They continued to pursue the Midianites and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon, who was now east of the Jordan. The word of the Lord. A reading from the book of Judges, chapter 8. Then the people of Ephraim said to Gideon, "Why didn't you call us when you went to fight the Midianites? Why did you treat us like this?" They complained bitterly about it. But he told them, "What I was able to do is nothing compared with what you have done. Even the little that you people of Ephraim did is worth more than what my whole clan has done. After all, through the power of God, you killed the two Midianite chiefs, Oreb and Zeb. What have I done to compare with that?" When he said this, they were no longer so angry. By this time, Gideon and his 300 men had come to the Jordan River and had crossed it. They were exhausted, but were still pursuing the enemy. When they arrived at Sukkoth, he said to the men of the town, "Please give my men some loaves of bread. They are exhausted, and I am chasing Zebah and Zalmunna, the Midianite kings." But the leaders of Sukkoth said, "Why should we give your army any food? You haven't captured Zebah and Zalmunna yet." So Gideon said, "All right, when the Lord has handed Zebah and Zalmunna over to me, I will beat you with thorns and briars from the desert." Gideon went on to Penuel and made the same request of the people there, but the men of Penuel gave the same answer as the men of Sukkoth. So he said to them, "I am going to come back safe and sound, and when I do, I will tear this tower down." Zebah and Zalmunna were at Karkor with their army. Of the whole army of desert tribesmen, only about 15,000 were left. 120,000 soldiers had been killed. Gideon went on the road along the edge of the desert, east of Nobah and Jogbehah, and attacked the army by surprise. The two Midianite kings, Zebah and Zalmunna, ran away, but he pursued them and captured them and caused the whole army to panic. When Gideon was returning from the battle by way of Heres Pass, he captured a young man from Sukkoth and questioned him. The young man wrote down for Gideon the names of the 77 leading men of Sukkoth. Then Gideon went to the men of Sukkoth and said, "Remember when you refused to help me? You said that you couldn't give any food to my exhausted army because I hadn't captured Zebah and Zalmunna yet. Well, here they are." He then took thorns and briars from the desert and used them to punish the leaders of Sukkoth. He also tore down the tower at Penuel and killed the men of that city. Then Gideon asked Zebah and Zalmunna, "What about the men you killed at Tabor?" They answered, "They look like you, every one of them like the son of a king." Gideon said, "They were my brothers, my own mother's sons. I solemnly swear that if you had not killed them, I would not kill you." Then he said to Jether, his oldest son, "Go ahead, kill them." But the boy did not draw his sword. He hesitated because he was still only a boy. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said to Gideon, "Come on, kill us yourself." It takes a man to do a man's job." So Gideon killed them and took the ornaments that were on the necks of their camels. After that, the Israelites said to Gideon, "Be our ruler, you and your descendants after you. You have saved us from the Midianites." Gideon answered, "I will not be your ruler, nor will my son. The Lord will be your ruler." But he went on to say, "Let me ask one thing of you. Every one of you give me the earrings you took." The Midianites, like other desert people, wore gold earrings. The people answered, "We'll be glad to give them to you." They spread out a cloth, and everyone put on it the earrings that he had taken. The gold earrings that Gideon got weighed over 40 pounds, and this did not include the ornaments, necklaces, and purple clothes that the kings of Midian wore, nor the collars that were around the necks of their camels. Gideon made an idol from the gold and put it in his hometown Ophrah. All the Israelites abandoned God and went there to worship the idol. It was a trap for Gideon and his family. So Midian was defeated by the Israelites and was no longer a threat. The land was at peace for 40 years until Gideon died. Gideon went back to his own home and lived there. He had 70 sons because he had many wives. He also had a concubine in Shechem. She bore him a son, and he named him Abimelech. Gideon, son of Joash, died at a ripe old age and was buried in the tomb of his father Joash at Ophrah, the town of the clan of Abiezer. After Gideon's death, the people of Israel were unfaithful to God again and worshipped the Baals. They made Baal of the covenant their god and no longer served the Lord their God, who had saved them from all their enemies around them. They were not grateful to the family of Gideon for all the good that he had done for Israel. The word of the Lord.